Hey bookish friends, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome for the very first time. I am doing my quarterly reading wrap up. So we are going to wrap up the books that I read between April and June. Now, this was a little bit of a slower paced quarter for me. I was able to read through 20 books. Now, that does sound like a lot to some people, but I was working through grief, finishing homeschooling with my kids for the very last few months, and traveling quite a bit. So you can watch some of those vlogs. We went to Arkansas, we had to go home to California for a funeral. And so that kind of also transitioned me into a reading slump. And it's definitely been a wild ride for me to come out of that reading slump, but I have been pushing through very, very toughly. So a lot of these books were able to help me sort of work through my grief. It just so happened that a lot of the time that I was reading, there was some type of subplot of grief in the books, even before the passing of my mother-in-law. And it was just so interesting to see how that played out and how that happened before, during, and after. And a lot of the reads that I picked, I had no idea that would be part of the plot. Before we start diving into all of that too much, I want to go ahead and get right into these books. This will be a long one, so make sure you grab your coffee, your wine, your water, because it is very, very hot outside. And outside of everything else, I am a slow reader in summer. I'm not going to lie to you guys. If you're also a slow reader, let me know. But in the summertime, I am so jam-packed with activities and with having 6 kids, and my husband, he works so far. He works 45 minutes away from our house, you guys. And if there's traffic, it could be longer than that. If you live in Hampton Roads, you know what it's like to travel on the HRBT. Or the Monitor Merrimack, So my reading time becomes really short. And I'm so grateful that I found the Silent Book Club and the community that surrounds that with Hush Reads, and I'll put them down in the description below. So if you are in the Hampton Roads area or even out to Richmond, you can come to events and mingle and meet lots of other bookish people. I want to say that during this time, outside of going to California, I did also go on a book retreat. I didn't do a lot of reading on the book retreat, but I did go on a book retreat, and I did attend some silent book clubs to help me get some reading time in and just some other time in with other people outside of my home. But yeah, so like I said, let's go ahead and let's get into the books that I read the second quarter of the year. Now, the first book that I finished was Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. If you know me, if you've been following me on Instagram for a while, before I got here on YouTube, then you'll know I love Kennedy Ryan. I've never really had an issue with any book that she's written, and the same goes for this one. In this book, we are following our FMC who is in an abusive relationship. So trigger warning, there are heavy descriptions of abuse in this book. I was not prepared for some of the things that were described in this book. Not to say that they're not needed for us to have compassion and understanding towards people who do suffer this, and unfortunately worse than this, but it was definitely heavy. It was definitely very, very heavy. And then we had our MMC, who was a basketball player, and her partner, the abusive partner, was also on another basketball team. And you see him becoming jealous about the fact that they have an attraction to one another and obviously a connection. And that kind of starts to fuel the abuse at some point. Not to say the abuse was already there before that, but it did progress once he realized that there was another man who would love her and care for her. I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars simply because I felt like some of it was dragged out. It's very thick. This is probably one of her thickest ones. The entire Hoop series is very thick. In fact, I haven't gotten into the second or third one after this one, but I just felt like there were at least a good 25 to 50 pages extra here that made me just feel icky that I had to continue reading through that. I felt like we had enough. I hope I'm saying that right, but it definitely felt like that. I don't know. Yeah, I still really liked the story. Don't get me wrong. I really liked the story. It was very well written. It definitely taught me a lot. But there was a point where I was like, okay. Then we had The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. And I want to say that this was probably the beginning of my reading slump. This was probably the beginning of the reading slump. And this had something to do with it. I was reading this book when my mother-in-law passed away. There's so much that I could say here. But before I get into that, I was reading this book, and about 50% of the way I decided to switch over to audiobook. And before this, I read 2 other Riley Sager books. You can watch that in my last quarterly wrap up. And I was in love. I was in love, literally. I was a woman enamored by this man's writing. And when I started listening to the audiobook, I thought I was crazy. Like, is there something wrong with me? Am I misunderstanding what's going on here? So I decided to get my husband's opinion. And he did listen to the entire audiobook. And without me giving him any of my opinions, we came to the exact same opinions. The exact same opinions. Now, this could have been a great summer thriller. It is set at a camp, at a lake, and there are some missing girls. There are some missing girls. They've been missing for quite some time. And the last person who saw them thinks that it's her fault. She goes through the entire story thinking it's her fault. And I just want to say that the first 50% of this book, I literally couldn't comprehend. I could not comprehend what was happening. And that's what made me switch to audiobook. And I thought that once I switched to the audiobook, it would be better. Now, it did start to pick up at a certain point, and you start to realize who the bad guy really is, which you kind of know who the bad guy is actually the entire time, but you're in denial. But then when the big woo-ha happens, which actually doesn't even happen until the epilogue, and you find out what the big woo-ha is and what our main character decides to do with it, I'm like, well, what was the point? What was the point of that? I don't know. I did end up giving this like a 2.75. And the reason why I did give it like that was because there was a point where I was binging it. And then that binge was literally for nothing. For nothing. After that, I did read another short book, and that is No Ordinary Love by Maya Arielle. And this book is following Ella and Miles, and it is a PR romance, and it is fast and swift. It is between a singer and a baseball player, and I believe this is based off of Mariah Carey and Derek Jeter's romance, and I love that. And like I told y'all, I give my all. Anyways, this book is literally super duper fast. You can read this on vacation. You can read this by the pool. The only thing about her books that kills me every single time is I feel like her books need a dual POV. The way that we are inside of the female character's head and like what we're getting from the male, I truly believe that it hinders the story. It hinders the story from moving forward and becoming this deep, interconnected story, romance thing that we are wanting and we keep wanting and we don't get that. And I felt the same way about When I Think of You. It really needed both of their point of views. It really, really needed it. Like, because they actually had history. When we're learning about the history, that's not for this video. That's not for this video. Anyways, this was very cute. I really enjoyed it. I did give it 4 stars, and I felt like it could have been a 4.5 star or even like a more solid 4 star if we would have had Miles POV. But yeah, it's definitely super easy. How many pages is this book? 291 pages. That is a short book for you. You take this to the lake, you sit by the pool, You'll have a good time. You're going to start to notice a theme here throughout the next couple of books, and that is because I did make a video of 7 romances in 7 days, and I'll put the card somewhere over here. And I don't normally do that to myself when we're not in the summertime, because outside of the summertime, romances start to feel a little, I don't even know. They start to feel a certain way. And I really felt that way when I read Nora Goes Off Script. I know. Last time I told you guys how I was in love with Summer Romance by Annabel Monaghan, and I stand by that. In fact, I just finished It's a Love Story by her yesterday, and I loved that one too. As far as Nora Goes Off Script, excuse me. I was really upset about what our FMC thought was love and how she was treated after getting divorced and what she accepted. It was to me like, I remember taking notes. You guys, I was literally taking notes about all the disrespect and the fact that she had not learned her lesson. Why would you accept this? Do not accept anything less. Like, I did end up giving this one a 2.5. It is a super short read. It is not something that I personally will go around recommending. It's shorter than This Ordinary Love, you guys. It's literally 260 pages. I'm not going to get into it because I do love Annabel Monaghan and I do want to be on her PR list someday. Then we had Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. Cara Bastone. I was not expecting what I got out of this. This is very springy. This is very cute. This has the pregnancy trope, and I don't think I read anything with a pregnancy trope before, and I ate it up. Like this, I read this in a little over 24 hours. Like I said, I was reading 7 romances in 7 days. And this one helped me get back on track for the challenge. It was very cute. I loved everything about it. I loved that the brother's best friend came in and really started to take the role of what the father of the child was supposed to do. And we're not going to talk about him. And the only thing I'm going to say about him is, to me, he's an unredeemable character. He came in when it was convenient. You did something and all of these other things. Like, as a mother myself, I couldn't do it. So I ended up giving this one a 3.75. Hear me out, because I was going to give it a 4-star. I ended up giving a 3.75 simply because I felt like the story started to take a little bit too long to progress. This book is pretty long. It's pretty long, and it's almost 400 pages. Yeah, it's almost 400 pages, and I really started to wonder, like, is the baby daddy ever going to figure it out? Is he going to come and take care of his child or not? And that's how I started to feel at the end. And then when he came around, it didn't do it for me. The conclusion didn't do it for me. But I do want to read Promise Me Sunshine. It's been on my TBR for like 2.5 months. I don't even know. But 3.75, it was super duper cute. Then with the announcement of a certain book that came out in May, I read Every Summer After for the second time. But this time I decided to listen to it on audiobook. And I'm really glad that I did that, because I was really like listening to the characters and who they were, and the people that I liked last time, I actually didn't like this time. Percy, she was the problem. She was the problem. But I reread Every Summer After, and I still gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars the first time and the second time. And yes, Every Summer After follows Percy and Sam and a little bit of our boy Charlie. And Percy and Sam meet each other while living out on the lake. They are childhood best friends who fall in love with one another. They do end up getting together, and Sam, he wants to be a doctor. He wants to be a heart doctor. due to a family tragedy. And when he does go off to college, there is something that happens, and it's a trope that people do not like and cannot stand. And some people really don't take the time to understand and listen to the growth of the characters. And I think that the second part of this book, which we'll get into, really dives into who humans are and what makes us bad, what makes us good, what makes us unredeemable, unlovable, ununderstandable. And I loved Charlie in the first book. And we'll get into it. But there's not too much spice in here either. I felt like I was at the lake. I've never been at a lake. And Carley's lake riding is just crazy because I've never wanted to go to a lake until I read her books. So yeah, 5 out of 5, always and forever. Then I read Funny Story.
Yo, bro, who got you smiling like that? Like,
Funny Story here. Funny Story is, I love Funny Story. It follows Daphne and Miles, who were engaged to a set of best friends. And those best friends decide to leave them to then become engaged to one another. So Daphne and Miles then become roommates. And what happens? Fake dating. Why do you say? Because their ex-fiancés decide to invite them to their wedding. And they begin fake dating. And so much is unpacked here. And there was so much misunderstanding about who the other person was. And they start to learn that. And I remember when their first kiss happened and I lost it, y'all. I lost it. I was in shock with how it was described. I was like, Miles, yes, you did that. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. But I loved everything about it. It just felt so good. And honestly, like, Emily Henry has quite a few books that feel summery. This one felt very like fall to me. I don't know why, like, not smack dab in the middle, but like that transition between summer and fall. That's what this felt like. And I ended up giving this 5 stars. I mean, this felt good. The 5-star that I gave Every Summer After doesn't count because I gave that 5 stars when it came out. This was a 5-star romance through and through. I loved everything about it and the time that it took. And it was just so good. The next one that I did was the Strawberry Patch Pancake House. I did that on audiobook. I actually have all the other ones on physical copy, and the first one was okay to me, and I actually really enjoyed the other ones. I felt like this one was, I don't know. I didn't even know how they got to where they got. I was pacing. I don't even remember the main characters' names, to be honest, you guys. I'm not even going to look them up. I just remember pacing because the nanny, she moved in, and then the smut was not smutting for me. For something with books that are filled with smut, what the hell does smut even mean? If you know what smut means, then comment it down below. I don't even, smut. When we got to the smut, I didn't understand it. She didn't even care. He didn't even care enough. It wasn't even it didn't even I understand that you can get into the moment and that things happen, but there was nothing that was sexy about it. It was that's all I'm gonna say. Then we finally got out of our romance era after that challenge, and I was like, yo, I need a break. And I read Hidden Pictures by Jason R. And I didn't really do my research going into this. And some people that I know from childhood wanted me to read this. I've had other people ask me if I've ever read this book. I've literally seen this book since it came out. And I don't know, it was on my TBR on Goodreads, but I just never ever picked it up. And I finally did. I had no idea what the premise was. I went into this book completely blind. And we're following Mallory, who has become a nanny for a child who likes to draw. And she moves in with them, and the child starts drawing some disturbing pictures. And we even get like all the different pictures in the book. We get the pictures in the book, and it really adds to it, definitely. But this is going to be a spoiler, so skip over this if you don't want to hear it. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a paranormal thriller, and the only other paranormal thriller that I've ever read is Layla by Colleen Hoover, and that was like when I first got into my reading journey, and I haven't read anything like that since. So I didn't know that it was that, and so everything that ended up happening was unexpected. They hinted at it, but I was like, oh, it's not going to be in here. This is a thriller. No, it's a paranormal thriller. So what you thought was definitely in there. I did give this a 4 out of 5. The reason why I know was because there were so many things that never got talked about again. There were plot points that I was like, oh, this is for a reason, and they never got brought back up. So, yeah, and then kind of the big reveal. It was good. I read it. I binge read it. You can read this book so fast, guys. I didn't even understand how I read it so fast. I was confused. Maybe because all the romance, all the romances. But yeah, it's definitely a good one. It's definitely like a palate cleanser. It's a little bit different than other thrillers. I do recommend it. And I do know he has another one that's out. So maybe I'll give him another try too and read it again. But I did enjoy myself. It's not like my favorite, but it was very well written. That's why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely wasn't ready to go back to romance, so I read Finlay Donovan Rolls the Dice. I love the Finlay Donovan series. It is what it is. This is not something that needs to be dissected and completely this, I don't know. This series is amazing for what it is. Elle Cosimano just does what she does so well. She makes us laugh. She makes us wonder. She keeps the plot rolling. She has unbelievable, undescribable, completely unrealistic things happening back to back to back, and I eat it up every single time. And this time, Vero and Finlay, they're headed over to Atlantic City because they're on the East Coast. If you don't know, Elle is from Virginia, so this entire series takes place in Northern Virginia, and they go over to Atlantic City, and Vera owes some people some money, and they got to figure out what they can do to get her out of trouble. And obviously, in true Finlay fashion, things start to unravel from there. Somebody dies. There's a body to be buried. How did they die? They didn't do it. Oh, where did you come from? You were in the last book. Here's another character. Cam, what are you hacking now? There's so many funny plot points. Finlay Donovan really reminds me of a really good Netflix series. I remember when the show Santa Clarita Diet came out on Netflix, and I loved that show. I would binge watch it every time they put out a new season. I was so sad when they ended it. And the humor that's in that show reminds me of the same humor that you get out of Finlay Donovan. I will continue to read these books time and time again, no matter how many come out. I decided to focus on some anticipated reads, and I'll put a little linky link here to that video. But I decided, hey, there's a lot of new releases that I really, really, really want to read this year. And the first one that I picked up was The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. You will know her as the author of the Magnolia Park series. And if you do not agree, this video will not be for that with some things that Jessa has said in the past week or so. I'm just going to give you my opinion here on this book. So we have Georgia, who is going back home for a family event. It tells you right here, a funeral. She's going back home, and her alcoholic brother, who also is gay, is going to be coming with his Alcohol Anonymous sponsor. It's a big thing in their family that her brother is gay. It is one of the biggest things that's put a wedge between him and his family. There's a lot of family dynamics when it comes to that. I don't want to spoil it for you, but there are some really, really, really nasty, shisty things that happen to him because of that. And then we have their sister. I don't even remember her name. Oh my gosh. Her sister is disgusting. Her sister is literally disgusting. She allows certain things to happen to Georgia, and she uses it to further her standing in society down in the South. And they use religion to literally push these two siblings down while they uplift two other siblings. And it's so sad. It's so despicable. Anyways, Georgia and Sam, they begin to fall in love with one another, but her brother is also in love with him, and Sam does not feel that way. And there becomes this whole dynamic that takes place, and it's very gut-wrenching. Now, when I initially read this book, I did say that I gave it I initially said that I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and then I sat with it for about a week. And there were some issues that I definitely did have with it after the fact that made me feel like this was more of a 4-star read. And that is the handling of church hurt. And this is my personal opinion as someone who has experienced church hurt with multiple churches and then been able to find a loving space that it just wasn't dealt with properly. It felt to me like very mishandled throughout the mugginess of it all. And when we're dealing with such a topic with church, religion, which is separate from Jesus, who he is, we have to deal with that properly and bring it back to the right source over here and not only dwell on the human source. And I'm not going to get too much more into it, but it felt like, as the author, my word is law. What I say and how I feel about this topic is law. And it felt almost, I think the word I'm looking for is pretentious once I thought about it. So, yeah, I'm very open to like what you guys think about it as a book. I felt like it was definitely something that needed to be talked about. There were just points that weren't executed properly. Yeah. Then I read this bad boy, One Golden Summer. And when I tell you that I've been waiting to know who Charlie is and return to Barry's Bay and experience what I experienced, my expectations were exceeded. Carley Fortune took every summer after and just delivered such an amazing redemption story, a love story, and a full spectrum picture when she wrote this. And the fact that we understood and learned why Charlie was the way he was, we learned why he over-sexualizes himself, which I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. Why, not just in men, not in women, but people in general, why does there come a time where we feel the need to over-sexualize ourselves or use that as a way to integrate into a crowd of people? She did a great job. I actually cried with this one. This one to me is better than every summer after. I wanted to reread it when I got done with it. And Alice was such an amazing woman to place inside the story with Charlie because of the fact that she appeared as an introvert and he appears as an extrovert, and they bring the opposite out of one another. And then we still get Sam and Percy in this story, and we get to see where their love has taken them, and we get to see Alice become a part of their family. Sue would be so proud. Sue would be so happy to see them. And then like we got to see Alice working out like her relationship with her grandmother, and we got to see her living out her childhood and becoming wild and free. And I just felt like this book was impeccably done. I felt like I was smack dab in the middle of summer, and summer hadn't even started yet when I read this. I read this to prepare y'all for summer, and I want to read it again. 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Mac Daddy. Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. Yes. Can't Get Enough is that girl. Can't Get Enough follows our girl Hendrix, and this is the last installment of the Skyland series, and we follow her thinking that we're gonna get someone, this like rich auntie, I got it all together, I don't need you, I'm child free. We think we're getting this, and what we really get is a woman in turmoil, a woman who's taking care of her elderly mother, who is losing her memory, who doesn't know how to deal with it, who is faced with business decisions and other women who are taking her as a person, disrespecting her, who she is, making backhanded compliments, and a woman who receives a man, and that man is our surfer, Maverick, who loves her all the way into softness, into the fact that I've seen people say in reviews, Hendrix wasn't who I thought she was going to be in this book. Hendrix was exactly who she needed to be in this book, who she wanted to be, who she deserved to be. After striving and working so hard and sticking to who she was, there was a man who loved her to the point where she could be soft and feel comfy. She didn't have to feel hard. She didn't have to feel like the go-getter, independent. As the oldest, take it as an oldest child who always feels like, I got to do this, I got to take care of that, I got to do this, I can do it on my own, I can blah, 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 blah. Y'all, I've been married for a long time and I'm still like that. It's a part of who I am. It's a part of who Hendrix is. But when someone steps into a position to where you don't have to be hard, you don't have to walk in trauma, you don't have to walk in any of it, that's an amazing feeling. That's a Black King right there. That's a Black King right there. And I cried so much. I don't know if I still have the footage of me crying, but you can watch my anticipated reads videos, like I said, and you will see me crying on my way to get my eyebrows done, because I did tandem read this with audio, because the friend group conversations were just great on audio. They were just great. They were great on audio. I love listening to them talk. I did. But this book to me was the best out of the Skyland series. I gave this infinity stars. It's a beautiful story, and I'm so happy that Hendrix was able to find her counterpart and not have to feel like she always had to do it on her own. I loved that for her. And also, I loved that Maverick was a Black surfer. I did. After that amazing high, I did read The Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, and I don't have much to say. We had 2 stories that weren't cohesively written together. I felt like once there was a scene that was like supposed to be an intimate scene, I felt like I didn't understand why it was happening. Once again, the 2 stories separately not even separately, but the entire story about Margaret's entire life story could have been its own story on its own. But yeah, I've definitely seen that people say this reminds them of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but not done well. And I completely agree with that. I do agree with that. And I don't have to have a romance book. I did not go into this thinking that this was a romance book. I went into this thinking it was contemporary fiction. It definitely had more contemporary fiction to it, but it was the MMC. He was the problem. He had nothing. He was giving us nothing. I don't want to go in on it too much, but I definitely gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I said what I said. I mean what I said. And I wasted my one time a year buying a hardback on this book. After that, I wanted something a little light. I read this when I was back at home in California. And I read Audrey and Bash Are Just Friends. And I didn't add this to my anticipated read video because I actually got that one out before I left. This was also one of my anticipated reads because this is following Audrey, who is the daughter of our main female character in 7 Days in June. I loved Audrey in that book. She was so cute. I loved her and Eva's dynamic. She was a little therapist. She was so funny. And she definitely helped to progress the story and the character development of her mom, because we're getting generation after generation after generation. But here in this book, we are seeing them in a totally different light. And we're seeing Audrey feeling pushed out of her family after Shane and Eva do have a child together, and she's 1 year old. And obviously, a lot of their attention goes to a 1-year-old. And it's put a rift between her and her mother. Audrey is starting to come into adulthood, and she decides to come up with a bucket list. And these are things that she feels like she needs to do to grow up. So when she finishes writing this bucket list with her friend, she enlists the help of Bash, who is the mysterious new senior that everyone has made tons of rumors about. And she doesn't know who he really is. She thinks the rumors are true. And they go throughout the summer helping her to complete her bucket list. And the summer romance ensues. It's very cute and sweet. And I loved the whole growth of who Audrey was. Now, I said this in my California vlog. Put it right here. I felt like this book was for the older crowd. It's not for 14, 15, and maybe not even 16-year-olds. There's one thing on her bucket list in particular that made me feel that way. Older juniors, seniors, for sure. But this became a huge deal in moving the story forward. And obviously there are descriptive scenes for each thing on the bucket list. And yeah, so that in particular, I was like, no, I wouldn't give it to my daughter. She's 15. Maybe in a couple years, but that's my personal opinion. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. It was very cute, and I don't even really usually enjoy a lot of YA like that, but this one I did, and Tia Williams did a great job writing this. Okay, you guys, we're moving into a book that definitely deserved better from me. It took me a while to finish it, and that is Beach Read by Emily Henry. There's a theme here. I have been working through Emily's backlist this quarter, and this book I started reading, I want to say the day before, I think it was the day before or the day of. Actually, it was the day of the funeral. I shouldn't have picked it up the day of the funeral. And this is going to be a little serious. You can skip if you want, but I have a hard time showing or accepting the emotions sometimes that I'm going through when I'm going through a difficult time. So you'll see me smile and laugh when something serious is happening. It is a coping mechanism from a lot of childhood trauma, and I'm trying to put on a face. And that includes pushing through with doing things that everyone knows that I love to do. And so I did pick up Beach Read. And I will tell you guys, there's some parts of the beginning of the story I do not remember. I don't. I was trying so hard, and I wasn't doing. I have to reread this book, but it took me a little over 2 weeks to get through. But once I started to get into the story between January and Augustus and really focus on the story, the writing was great. The writing in this book to me is impeccable, and they took their time. And the thing about this story is they're both going through almost the exact same thing through different perspectives of the person within the dynamic of what has happened. And the setting just felt good. They were both writers, and how their love came about just felt so good. It felt so right. It felt fluid. It didn't feel forced. And January to me just felt like our quirky reader, bookish girly. That's how she felt. And I loved that. And I was very hurt for her. I was hurt for Augustus. I was hurt for everyone in the situation that her particular family is in and how that happened and how that played out. Not for Augustus's, but for him, yes, but not the other person. But it was a really great story. I could definitely see this being a summer, but actually fall read. It did feel a little fallish, even though it was beach read. So I did give this one a 4.5 stars, and I know I need to reread this at some point or do like an audiobook so that way I can hear the first like 10%, 15% of the story over. But all in all, I did really enjoy this one. It's definitely one of my favorite Emily Henrys. Then we had a good time, and I decided I needed to read authors that I'd never read before. I'm tired of reading the same authors. We need to read something different. And I picked up Curvy Girl Summer because y'all told me that I needed to pick up Curvy Girl Summer. Y'all told me it was good, and you were right. You were right. This was such a good palate cleanser. This pulled me back into reading. This book is the moment that I felt like I want to read again. Like, don't get me wrong, beach read was good, but like I said, there was a part of it where I was still in the slump. This was like, let's go, girl. You got this. Read this book. This is a good book right here. And this is a good book. You guys, this follows Aaliyah, who's dealing with grief. Remember what I told y'all? Dealing with grief. Also, I didn't tell you guys all the books that were dealing with grief, but Beach Read is also dealing with grief. She's dealing with grief. Her family is talking mess about her because they think that she's too big. It's very disrespectful. It's very rude. I used to weigh 300 pounds. Okay? So I already know the things that people do or say. You would be so pretty if you weighed 140 pounds. I'm 5'9". Anyways, whatever. So this follows Aaliyah. Her family's talking about her. She's dealing with grief. She's trying to find a man before her birthday party. And then you have Ahmad, who is a bartender. She meets him, and he's basically hosting her and her dates to find a man before her birthday. And you just take it from there. You got a little jealousy, got a little friends to lovers, got a little, everything in there. I loved it. I ate it up. And in fact, I just started Plus Size Player this morning because I loved it so much that I wanted to immediately continue inside of this world. And if you're a fan of the Skyland series, then you will definitely love this. I gave this one 4.25 out of 5 stars. All the Sinners Bleed. All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. Oh my goodness. First off, let's get into the rating right away. 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5. This man can write. He can write. He is local to Hampton Roads, where I currently live. And I really didn't know why. Every time I went somewhere, his books were everywhere. I didn't understand. And I went to the book retreat. I already had this book. I had it planned to read, and I just kept not reading it. Went to the book retreat. They were talking about Razor Blade Tears, and I was like, okay, I don't have Razor Blade Tears, but I do have All the Sinners Bleed. I'm going to read this. Oh my gosh! I thought Sharon County. I thought that it was real. I thought that it was real. That's how good he wrote it. That's how descriptive he wrote it. Every time he started to mention areas all around Hampton Roads, I was like, hold on a minute. Is this real? Is it real or no? What's going on here? So this follows Titus, who is the first Black sheriff in his county, in his town, and he is voted in. And obviously, it is a racist town. So the white people do not like that he is the sheriff. And then you also have the Black people who voted him in, wanted him there, and then now see him as the enemy. They don't trust him anymore. He is facing so many different racial tensions. And not only that, he is facing so much backlash from every part of the community in Sharon County. He is now on the hunt for a serial killer who was a part of a trio. And the story my husband listened to it 2 times. The story just rolls so much that my husband felt the need to listen to it 2 times. I did do it mostly on paperback, and then I listened to from chapter 21 on audiobook because I had to take care of some household stuff. My husband listened to it 2 times because he felt like he needed to go back and make sure that he didn't miss anything, because he was like, how, what, who? 5 out of 5. Next, I did decide to read Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. I gave this one a 3 out of 5. I do stand by that. 3 is not bad. It was just, there were some things that could have been done better. And I don't know if other people just aren't noticing these things, but I felt like our FMC began to digress. She wasn't progressing. I felt like as the story continued, her language, the way she communicated, the way she acted became more and more juvenile. And then when we were in the flashbacks, they were great. But also towards the last part of the book, maybe last quarter or so, the MMC also became very stale. I was confused by that because he just seemed so much more interesting in the flashbacks. So I don't know, but the scene setting, like everything that had to do with like being in Italy and all the aspects of that and the sightseeing and everything was done so well. And I did go ahead and read the About Me before I started the book and saw that Ali Hazelwood is from Italy. And so I could see why she wrote that very, very well. But also there were so many characters that there was a point where I was like, I guess I'll figure out who is who at some point in time, because there were so many characters all of a sudden. Like, I don't know. I did not read Not in Love as well. I did not know that this was book 2 when I picked it up. And then I was just like, well, I'm going to read it. I know I never, ever, ever do that. And after doing it with this book, I probably will never, ever do that again. I like to read series, whether they want to say that they're standalones and they're not interconnected or not. You always get glimpses of people that helps you understand by the time you get to book 4, you know who everybody is. So I'll never do that again. But it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good to me either. 3 out of 5. And last but not least, definitely not least, and she needs an whooping. It's Brooklyn. That doesn't mean don't buy it. Definitely buy it. I felt like the movie 13 and the show Power got together and had a little baby, and that baby was Brooklyn. Okay? This bad baby, Brooklyn. Okay? And I did not cry, by the way. I did not cry whatsoever while reading this book. I thought when we started the book and what opens the book and what then course changes Brooklyn's life, I thought that after that happened, I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to cry because maybe like her life is going to continue in this trajectory. And then it didn't. There's SA, and then she goes on to make choices after her essay is not dealt with properly. Her essay is pushed to the back burner. It's lied about. Her mom is disgusting and despicable. And from that point forward, Brooklyn continues to search for someone to validate her. Parents, we have to do better. This is not something that doesn't happen. It happens. And we have to do better as parents to make sure that we are standing on business when our kids come to us about something. I don't care about family friends. I don't care about cousins. I don't care about brothers. I don't care about aunties. I don't care about daddies. I don't care about none of that. When your kid comes and tells you something, you take care of business. Okay? They're innocent and pure and they don't understand. And Brooklyn did not receive any of that. And her life was forever changed. Now, what she continued to do as an adult, as someone who has experienced SA, that's your choice. And when she kept making them damn choices, the choices that Brooklyn continued to make after that, I couldn't put it down. I couldn't put it down. I couldn't put it down, y'all. Y'all gotta go watch the video. New author video. I couldn't put it down. What she did, what she continued to do, and then like the very end, how grimy, why she came to do what she came to do really. My husband decided to listen to Brooklyn on audiobook and he ate it up alive. He ate it up alive. Yeah, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars for sure. It's not like a 5-star read for me, but or did I give it 4.5? I don't remember at this point, but it was good. It was good. Y'all, I'm not gonna sit here and pick up every last book that I read, but I will say that I feel like this was a good quarter. It definitely set me up for the summertime. I read a lot of books before summer that like felt like summer, made me ready for summer, and that I was able to recommend. Look at me, not picking up all the books that I said I wasn't going to pick up. But I think I had a really good reading quarter. I definitely had some lows and I had some really, really, really big highs. But all in all, I had a great time. I did. This stack is as tall as one of my toddlers. And even though the last 2 months have been slower reading months for me, the April was definitely not. April, I did that challenge and I was killing the game. I didn't even include one of the books that I read with the kids, which is Sugar. I've talked about it before, but I'll put a picture right here. But Sugar was a great book as well. If you want to get something to add to your kids' library or read with them. Very cute. Very, very cute. But anyways, until next time, happy reading.